I love racing games. While there are a ton of them I want to cover on my channel, one kart racer in particular came out last week that I was dying to get my hands on. Crash Team Racing Nitro-Fueled is a remake of Crash Team Racing on the PS1, a game I never played because I owned an N64 and therefore I have no nostalgia for. I jumped into CTR because I wanted a racing game with a meatier single-player mode than other kart racing games, and honestly Team Sonic Racing just isn't compelling enough to me. But one thing I wasn't sure about is how hot and cold people seemed to be right after this game was released. Was it a faithful recreation of the original, or did the handling feel clunky and weird? Was it a beautiful homage to the series, or did an aggressive rubber banding AI suck all the fun out of the game? Well, it's a little bit of both. Crash Team Racing is both good and bad for a variety of reasons, and by the end of this video, hopefully we'll come to a conclusion on whether or not it will make you smile, or throw your controller through your Crash Bandicoot shrine. Chances are you'll feel a little bit of both, because I know I sure did. One thing that struck me right off the bat was how different it is from Mario Kart 8, the obvious point of comparison for everyone else. What surprised me was that this game is far more comparable to Diddy Kong Racing, an excellent Mario Kart alternative for the N64 and DS, with a robust single-player adventure. Almost everything about Crash Team Racing feels closer to Diddy Kong Racing, from the single-player content to the slippery feeling of driving your kart. Crash Team Racing is a similar adventure mode where you have to save the world from destruction by getting enough trophies and relics to challenge the alien nitrous oxide to a race. If you win, the planet is saved. If not,
goodbye.
You choose between the classic adventure or the nitro-fueled versions when you start. The classic mode is as faithful to the original as it can be, as you can only play with Crash in the original karts, whereas nitro-fueled lets you swap between karts and characters in between races to strategize. I chose classic mode as I wanted to get as close to the original experience as possible, while also sticking closer to the theme of this channel. An immediate problem that struck me in the face was how claustrophobic the hub world feels. While sure I prefer a hub world over a list of challenges to complete, the world here feels small and kinda useless. There is no reason to explore, not that you even really can, and I found myself spending no more than a few seconds in it before jumping into another race. It's a small nitpick, but given how much thought has been put into modernizing this game, making the overworld feel a little bit more open and worth venturing into would have been really nice. But I digress. In spite of the overall empty overworld, there are plenty of tracks to cover, with more being added through different Grand Prix events to come. In the classic adventure, you play through 15 different courses. Every time you come to a track, you compete in a standard race for a trophy. Now I'm about to tear into this game for a bit, but before I do, I want to say that I had a ton of fun with Crash Team Racing, and overall it was a thoroughly enjoyable experience. When I was writing this script, I felt weird, like I was trashing this game that I actually really liked. And I do really like it, when it plays fair. It's a great game when you feel the real challenge this game has to offer, but when it decides to really pile on top of you, it's some of the most excruciatingly annoying gameplay I've ever felt in a racing game. The kart racing feels chaotic and wild, exactly what a game starring Crash Bandicoot should feel like. Whether you play alone or with friends, racing feels fun and in a lot of ways rougher around the edges than Mario Kart. In this game's case, that roughness is a selling point rather than a setback, but at times it can be a double-edged sword. Controlling your kart can feel really odd at times, I want to say. Throughout my time playing, I rarely felt ever 100% in control. One of the main mechanics of the game is drifting, and I didn't even know how to use it because there was no tutorial on how to actually use drifting. It required unlearning everything I knew about drifting in Mario Kart. It wasn't until 5 or 6 races in when I saw a tip on a loading screen on how to actually drift boost. While it does add a layer of complexity to the drifting and can be fun to pull off, it rarely ever feels right. The hop crash does before drifting often feels way too strong and you end up flubbing the drift. And the worst, the absolute worst part of drifting is that if you drift for too long or hold the slide for too long, you spin out. It's like tripping in Smash Bros. On Wii, completely unnecessary and punishes you for no reason. Especially given that the AI never seems to really suffer from this. Drifting aside, accurate driving really isn't easy. The game feels great when you're racing with friends and a flawless performance isn't needed, but on specific challenges where you have to weave around and collect crystals, it feels almost impossible. This is the first level, and I can't even consistently place myself in line to get the gems. It's infuriating, and I gave up after half an hour of trying. It just isn't worth it to me. The difficulty spikes are all over the place. You can knock out 3 races no problem and be half a track ahead of everyone, but then you'll hit one track and get stuck for like 45 minutes because you aren't driving absolutely perfectly, and I mean perfectly. And even when you're in the zone and crushing the track, The AI has a tendency of piling up onto you with different items like rockets. I found myself getting hit over and over, back to back, by bombs that came seemingly out of nowhere. I would call this game old school hard, but from what I've read from the fans of the series, they had an easier time with the original. When you finally drive well enough and pile up some trophies, you can challenge the boss of each area, which nets you a key to move on to yet another area, and so on until you get to the final boss. These bosses range from total pushovers to some of the cheapest difficulty spikes I've ever seen. There are some bosses that are near impossible to beat without enough luck to get ahead early. I mean, look at how many bombs this one boss is just letting off. It's not long before it gets frustrating, and honestly, I almost took a break because of how frustrated I got with the game at this point, because it just doesn't seem fair, and look how narrow the track is. Like, what are you supposed to even do here? I had to restart over and over until I finally got to the point where I was ahead most of the race, and even then I almost lost at the last second. If you want to power through the bare minimum requirements to get to the end, completing the races can be done in just a few hours. I unintentionally beat the game the same day I got it, but there's still plenty to do after you finish, even if you do happen to rush to the end. Besides, I only completed 60% of the adventure trials, out of the possible 101%. Once you get the trophy for beating the race, there's a few different things you can do. You can go back and do races that let you collect C, T, and R tokens that are hidden throughout the level, and if you can somehow do that and still finish first, you get a medallion. Those challenges felt alright, but I kinda wish they would have just hidden the tokens in the first race, so if you somehow actually found them, you wouldn't have to go back and try to master the tracks again and again. It honestly just felt like a little bit of padding. There are relic races where you have to complete 3 laps in a certain amount of time. Now, when I think of having fun, there are 2 things that come to mind in gaming that are the antithesis of fun. Bathing in Red Dead Redemption 2 and every time trial in every racing game ever. Maybe I'm being too harsh. I mean, come on, who doesn't want to play a racing game completely alone on a racetrack? But in Crash Team Racing, the time trials have a twist. You can smash crates which freeze the timer and let you chisel away at your times, letting you get really low times. It's really satisfying. I frankly had a ton of fun with these, and trying to find the fastest way around the track while smashing boxes really had me coming back for more. I honestly liked it more than the racing in some parts. But there's one issue with a select few tracks that really left a sour taste in my mouth and prevented me from completing some of the relic races at all. Even the earlier ones. I had more problems in the beginning of the game than later in the game because of this issue. While the tracks are true to the universe and gorgeous, and I mean gorgeous, racing around a few felt clunky, like their layout was somehow messed up. While driving through the snow and jumping your way over shortcuts feels genuinely fast, there are some turns that no matter what I did, felt impossible to make around without hitting a wall. The angle when drifting around a turn is quite wide, and on hairpin turns in the floating city track, for instance, or the spiraling ramp up the mine shaft felt too tight for driving. If I'm missing the right way to do this, feel free to rip me apart in the comments. But I don't think hitting the e-brake and dropping to less than half my speed is ideal in a kart racer, especially when you can see every opponent running into the same walls you do when they're trying to get around them too. But now that I've covered everything that really grinded my gears and prevented the game from overtaking Mario Kart 8 as my racer of choice, there's a ton to love about the game. The graphics are gorgeous and cartoony. Each track feels unique, yet at home in the world. Where Mario Kart tracks have such a long history, they can kind of feel disjointed. You've got ice levels that are a ton of fun to play in, an airborne track above the clouds, and oh hey, Wario Stadium even made it. But there's an obscene amount of content to unlock too. That was one of the biggest problems I had with Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, like everything is unlocked from the beginning. There are 26 racers in total, each with their own unique stats, tons of different kart bodies to unlock, and all kinds of other cosmetic items to get, from tires to decals. Every time you finish a race, no matter what, you get currency that lets you purchase items from the in-game shop. There's no microtransactions here, which feels like a godsend in 2019. But what isn't a godsend is that I played for about 8 to 10 hours and I could only afford one car body. If I wanted to work for 8 hours a day and still not be able to afford the things I want, I would get a real job, and oh wait, that's just the life I already live. This isn't fun at all. Crash Team Racing is a solid game with some quirks that prevented it from being truly great. While this game is a remake, you don't need nostalgia to fully enjoy it. If you're a fan of kart racers and want a game with a single-player component that'll keep you coming back, you basically don't have any other option. Unless, of course, you go out and buy an N64 with a copy of Diddy Kong Racing. But come on, who's gonna do that? The reason I kind of wanted to do this video is because I wanted to be a mediator between the people who feel nostalgic for the Crash series and the people who are looking at it with a critical eye. Since I don't have any nostalgia, I don't really have a side in this. I really just love racing games in general, and this one really piqued my interest because, I mean, one of my favorite games is Diddy Kong Racing, and anything from that time really feels like a classic to me. And being able to go back to a game with that kind of style from that long ago felt like something I would find fun, and I did. I mean, it's a really good game, and I mean really good, not great, because it is painful how hard this game can be at sometimes in an unfair way, and I can't really stress that enough. Obviously, if you play the game on easy mode, it's going to be like a walk through the park. Anything higher than that is going to pose a real challenge, and if you're not really on your game, you might get frustrated with it, because I know I did. And that's really just not what you want to feel when you're picking up a kart racing game that's meant to be like a party-style kind of game. But if you are looking for a single-player racing game, and in this day and age, there's so few that are worth playing, I kind of recommend picking it up. Obviously, it's no racing sim, but it's going to have to do the trick. Alright, that's going to do it for this video. If you like the video, feel free to leave a like. It helps me out a lot to figure out what's going on well, what's going on wrong, things I need to improve on, whatever. Leave a comment down below what you think of the game. I know it's fresh on everyone's minds. And if you like the video enough, check out some of my other videos and maybe even subscribe. I really appreciate it. Have a good one and see you next video.